The medical bay of the interstellar research station Kepler-7 hummed with the usual symphony of life support systems and diagnostic equipment. Dr. Sarah Chen finished her rounds, checking on the last of her patients, a Zephyrian trader who had suffered mild radiation poisoning during a solar flare. The alien's crystalline skin had already begun to heal, responding well to the universal treatment protocols she had developed over her 5 years serving on the station. Sarah was one of only 12 humans working on Kepler-7, a massive facility that housed over 3,000 beings from 47 different species. As the chief medical officer, she had seen every kind of injury, illness, and biological crisis imaginable. Her reputation for treating non-human patients had spread throughout this sector of the galaxy, earning her respect even from species that typically viewed humans as primitive newcomers to galactic civilization. The communication panel on her desk chimed with an incoming priority message. Sarah glanced at the display and frowned. The message came from the Valkorian Council, one of the most advanced and influential species in the galactic community. Valkorians were known for their cold logic and technological superiority, rarely seeking help from what they considered lesser species. Dr. Chen, the holographic image of a tall, silver-skinned Valkorian, appeared before her desk. The alien's features were sharp and angular, with large black eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "I am Commander Zeth-9 of the exploration vessel Astral Wind. We require immediate medical consultation." Sarah straightened in her chair. Valkorians never asked for help lightly. "What's the nature of the emergency, Commander?" The alien's expression remained impassive, but Sarah detected something unusual in the slight hesitation before he spoke. "We have a situation involving one of our research specimens. The creature is dying, and our medical protocols have proven ineffective. We understand you have experience with exotic biological systems." "What kind of specimen are we talking about?" Sarah asked, already pulling up her portable medical kit inventory on her secondary screen. "A feline predator from the planet Nexus 4. We acquired it for behavioral studies during our survey of potentially habitable worlds. The creature has been unresponsive to treatment and appears to be entering systemic failure." Sarah's eyebrows rose. The Valkorians were notorious for their clinical approach to research, often treating living subjects as mere data points. "How long has the animal been in your custody?" "Approximately 6 standard months. It initially adapted well to shipboard conditions, but began showing signs of deterioration 3 weeks ago. Our medical AI has exhausted all treatment options." The way he said deterioration sent a chill down Sarah's spine. She had heard stories about Valkorian research methods. Sterile, isolated, focused purely on gathering data with little regard for the psychological well-being of their subjects. "I'll need to examine the animal myself. Can you bring it to the station?" "Negative. The creature is too unstable for transport. We require you to come aboard our vessel. Time is critical." Sarah hesitated. Boarding a Valkorian ship meant entering a completely sterile environment designed for beings who viewed emotional attachment as a weakness. But the urgency in the commander's voice, subtle though it was, suggested this was more than just another research project gone wrong. "I'll need full access to the creature and all medical data you've collected," she said finally. "Agreed. We will transmit docking coordinates. Dr. Chen." The commander paused, an unusual display of uncertainty for a Valkorian. "Our research team has grown attached to the specimen. This is unusual for us. We do not understand why its condition affects our efficiency." Sarah felt a spark of hope. Even the coldly logical Valkorians weren't completely immune to the bond that could form between caregiver and patient. "I'll be there in 2 hours." The journey to the Astral Wind gave Sarah time to review what little she knew about Nexus 4. The planet was located in a distant spiral arm with a slightly higher gravity than Earth and a longer day-night cycle. The survey reports mentioned large feline predators similar to Earth's big cats, but with some unique adaptations to their environment. The Valkorian vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek, efficient, and utterly sterile. As Sarah docked her shuttle in their bay, she was struck by the complete absence of any decorative elements or personal touches. Everything was functional, designed for maximum efficiency. Commander Zeth 9 met her at the airlock, accompanied by two other Valkorians who were introduced as research specialist Keth 4 and medical technician Yara 7. Their silver skins seemed to shimmer under the cool white lighting, and their movements were precise and economical. "The specimen is contained in Research Bay 7, Zeth 9 said as they walked through corridors that looked more like the inside of a machine than a place where living beings worked. "We have maintained optimal environmental conditions for its species." "What about social conditions?" Sarah asked. "Feline species are often social creatures, especially the larger predators. Has it had any interaction with other living beings?" The three Valkorians exchanged glances, a rare display of emotion. "Social interaction was not part of the research parameters," Keth 4 said. "We observed the creature through sensors and automated systems." Sarah felt her jaw clench, but kept her expression neutral. 6 months of complete isolation would drive any social creature toward psychological collapse, regardless of how perfect the physical environment might be. Research Bay 7 was a large empty chamber with white walls and a single observation window. Inside, Sarah could see a magnificent feline creature about the size of a large tiger, but with some remarkable differences. Its fur was a deep midnight blue with silver markings that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. The creature lay motionless on the floor, its breathing shallow and labored. "My God," Sarah whispered. Even from outside the chamber, she could see that this was no ordinary animal. The silver markings on its fur pulsed faintly with bioluminescent light, and its proportions suggested a creature built for both power and grace. "The species appears to possess limited telepathic abilities," Yara 7 explained clinically. "The markings serve as emotional indicators and communication tools. They have grown increasingly dim over the past weeks." Sarah studied the readings on the medical displays mounted beside the observation window. Physically, the creature appeared to be in reasonable health. No signs of disease, adequate nutrition, proper environmental conditions. But the psychological markers told a different story entirely. "This animal is dying of loneliness," she said quietly. "Look at these neurochemical readings. Elevated stress hormones, depleted serotonin levels, suppressed immune function. You've created the perfect conditions for what humans call failure to thrive." "That term is not in our medical database," Zeth 9 said. Sarah turned to face the three aliens, seeing them with new eyes. Despite their advanced technology and superior intellect, they had completely missed something that any human veterinarian would have recognized immediately. It means the creature is giving up. Without social contact, without purpose or stimulation, it's chosen to stop living. "Chosen?" Keth 4 stepped closer to the window. "The creature has cognitive capacity for such decisions?" "All intelligent species do to some degree. The question is whether you're willing to let me try to save it." Sarah pulled up her portable scanner and began taking her own readings through the chamber's sensors. "I'll need to go inside and establish physical contact." The Valkorians looked alarmed. "The creature is an apex predator. Despite its current condition, it retains the capacity for violence." Sarah smiled for the first time since boarding their ship. "Commander, I didn't become a xenobiologist because I was afraid of a little danger. And right now, this animal needs to remember that not all contact with other beings leads to isolation and study." As she prepared to enter the chamber, Sarah noticed something that made her pause. Through the transparent wall, the great cat had lifted its head slightly and was looking directly at her with eyes that glowed like blue stars. For just a moment, the silver markings on its fur pulsed a little brighter. The creature was still fighting. It was still hoping. Sarah sealed her environmental suit and stepped toward the chamber door. Behind her, she heard Zeth 9 speaking quietly to his companions in their own language. She didn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. They were worried, not about the success or failure of their research, but about the life of the creature they had been studying. Perhaps there was hope for more than just the dying feline after all. The airlock hissed open, and Sarah stepped into the research chamber. The air was perfectly filtered and temperature-controlled, but it felt sterile and lifeless, like breathing inside a machine. The magnificent feline creature remained where it had been lying, but its ears twitched at her approach, and those brilliant blue eyes tracked her movement. "Easy there, beautiful," Sarah whispered, slowly lowering herself to sit cross-legged on the floor several meters away from the animal. She kept her movements deliberate and non-threatening, the way she had learned during her veterinary training on Earth. "I'm not here to hurt you." The creature's silver markings flickered weakly, cycling through what appeared to be different patterns. Sarah pulled out her scanner and began taking detailed readings, but she also did something the Valkorians had never thought to do. She talked to the animal. "My name is Sarah. I'm a doctor, and I'm here because some very worried aliens asked me to help you." She kept her voice calm and steady. "They don't understand why you're sick, but I think I do. You're lonely, aren't you?" The great cat lifted its head fully for the first time, fixing those star-bright eyes on Sarah's face. The bioluminescent markings along its fur began to pulse in a slow, steady rhythm that reminded Sarah of a heartbeat. From the observation window, she could hear the Valkorians speaking in their precise, clinical tones. Their translation devices allowed her to understand their conversation. "Remarkable," Yara 7 was saying. "The creature's neurochemical readings are already showing measurable changes, heart rate stabilizing, stress hormones beginning to decrease." "How is this possible?" Keth 4 sounded genuinely puzzled. "Dr. Chen has made no physical contact, administered no medication." Sarah smiled, despite the seriousness of the situation. "Because medicine isn't just about treating bodies," she called out, loud enough for them to hear. "Sometimes it's about treating souls." She spent the next hour simply sitting with the creature, talking softly and making gentle observations about its condition. The animal was clearly intelligent. Its eyes followed her words, and it seemed to understand that she represented something different from the cold, distant observation it had endured for months. Gradually, Sarah began to move closer. The creature watched her approach, but showed no signs of aggression. When she was close enough to touch, she extended her hand slowly, palm up, letting the animal catch her scent. The moment their skin made contact, Sarah gasped. A wave of emotion crashed over her, loneliness so profound it felt like drowning, followed by a desperate hope that made her eyes water. The creature's telepathic abilities were far more sophisticated than the Valkorians had realized. "Oh, sweetheart," Sarah breathed, gently stroking the soft fur behind the animal's ears. "You've been trying to tell them what you needed all along, haven't you?" The silver markings blazed brighter, creating intricate patterns that seemed to flow like writing across the creature's fur. Sarah looked up at the observation window where the 3 Valkorians were studying their displays with obvious amazement. "Commander Zeth 9, I need you to run a comparative analysis on those marking patterns. I think this animal has been trying to communicate with you for months." Over the next several hours, Sarah worked with both the creature and the Valkorian research team to piece together what had really been happening. The feline, which Sarah had begun calling Stella for the star-like quality of its eyes, was not just an intelligent predator, It was a highly social being with complex emotional needs and sophisticated communication abilities. The markings on its fur were indeed a form of language, expressing everything from basic needs to complex emotional states. The Valkorians had cataloged the patterns as interesting biological phenomena, but had never considered that they might be attempts at communication. "She's been telling you she was sick," Sarah explained, as she continued her gentle examination of Stella. The creature had grown more responsive with each hour of contact, and its fur patterns had become increasingly vibrant. "Look at this sequence here. It's repeated in your data logs over 40 times in the past month." Yara 7 pulled up the relevant files. This pattern appeared most frequently during what we recorded as periods of increased distress, because she was trying to tell you she needed help. And this pattern here, Sarah indicated another sequence that flowed across Stella's shoulders, appears whenever she looks toward the observation window. "Social recognition markers," Keth 4 said with sudden understanding. She was attempting to establish social bonds with the research team. Commander Zeth 9 had remained silent throughout most of this analysis, but Sarah noticed he kept returning to stand directly in front of the observation window. Stella, in turn, seemed to focus on him more than the other Valkorians. "Commander," Sarah said carefully, "I think she's been trying to bond with you specifically. Feline species often choose a particular individual as their primary social contact." The Valkorian's silver features shifted in what might have been surprise. "That is illogical. I am merely the mission commander. I have had no direct interaction with the specimen." "But you've been here every day, haven't you?" "Checking on her progress, reviewing the research data. She could sense your presence through the walls, through the ship's systems. Telepathic species can often perceive emotional states even at a distance." Sarah watched as understanding dawned on the three aliens. The cold, clinical approach that served the Valkorians so well in most situations had blinded them to something fundamental about the creature they were studying. "There's something else," Sarah continued, running her hand along Stella's flank as the animal began to purr, a sound like distant thunder mixed with the hum of a starship's engines. "I think she's not just intelligent. I think she's been worried about all of you too." "Explain," Zeth 9 said, moving closer to the window. "Her markings show concern patterns whenever she senses stress from the crew." "Feline species are often highly empathic, especially the telepathic ones. She's been trapped in here, sensing the emotional states of everyone around her but unable to help or communicate effectively." As if to prove Sarah's point, Stella suddenly raised her head and looked directly at Yara 7. The medical technician had been reviewing data on a tablet, and Sarah could see from her body language that she was frustrated with some technical problem. Stella's fur flickered in a new pattern, one that somehow conveyed both inquiry and comfort. Yara 7 stopped what she was doing and stared at the creature with obvious amazement. "She is asking if I am well," Yara 7 said slowly. "I can sense the inquiry. How is this possible?" "Because she cares about you," Sarah said simply. "All of you. You've been her only contact with other intelligent life for 6 months. Despite being isolated and ignored, she still cares about your well-being." The room fell silent except for Stella's deep purring and the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Sarah could see the Valkorians struggling to process this information through their logical, analytical worldview. Finally, Commander Zeth 9 spoke. "Dr. Chen, what would this creature need to fully recover?" Sarah looked down at Stella, who had moved closer, and was now resting her great head against Sarah's leg. The silver markings had stabilized into a pattern that radiated contentment and hope. Social interaction, mental stimulation, a sense of purpose, and most importantly, Sarah looked up at the three Valkorians, the understanding that she's not a specimen to be studied, but a being to be known. The Galactic Council regulations regarding treatment of intelligent species are quite specific. Keth-4 said carefully. Yes, they are, Sarah agreed. And right now you have a choice. You can continue to treat Stella as a research subject and watch her die slowly from isolation. Or you can acknowledge what she really is and find a way to give her the life she deserves. Commander Zeth-9 was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes fixed on the creature who had somehow managed to touch the hearts of beings bred for logic and emotional detachment. There is a third option, he said finally. One that would satisfy both the regulations and the emotional requirements of the situation. Sarah raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind, Commander? Partnership, Zeth-9 said simply. The Astral Wind is a deep space exploration vessel. We encounter unknown worlds, hostile environments, and situations that require both intelligence and intuition. A telepathic, empathic crew member with enhanced senses and protective instincts could be invaluable. Sarah felt Stella's purr deepen, and the silver markings shifted into a pattern that blazed with excitement and joy. The great cat had understood every word. But first, Sarah said, standing up and stretching muscles that had grown stiff from sitting on the floor. She needs time to heal properly, and you need time to learn how to be her partners instead of her captors. 3 months later, Sarah received an unexpected visitor at Kepler-7. Commander Zeth-9 arrived not in an official Valkorian transport, but in a smaller, more personal craft. What surprised her even more was his companion. Stella bounded into the medical bay with all the grace and power of her species, but now her midnight blue fur gleamed with health, and her silver markings sparkled with complex patterns that Sarah had learned to recognize as expressions of joy and curiosity. The great cat had grown even more magnificent than before, her telepathic abilities strengthened by months of proper social interaction and mental stimulation. Dr. Chen, Zeth-9 greeted her with what might have been a smile on his angular features. We bring news of our recent mission. Sarah knelt down as Stella approached, running her hands through the creature's thick fur. The telepathic contact immediately flooded her mind with images and emotions. Distant worlds under alien suns, tense negotiations with hostile species, the thrill of discovery, and underneath it all a deep sense of belonging and purpose. She looks incredible, Sarah said, noting how Stella's entire demeanor had transformed. Where once there had been hopelessness and despair, now there was confidence, intelligence, and an unmistakable joy in living. The crew has accepted her completely, Zeth-9 said, his voice carrying a warmth that would have been impossible 3 months ago. Her insights have proven invaluable on multiple occasions. During our most recent survey, we encountered a species that communicated primarily through bioluminescent displays. Stella was able to interpret their intentions hours before our translation computers could establish basic communication protocols. Stella moved away from Sarah and padded over to a holographic display unit on the far wall. Her markings shifted into a complex pattern, and suddenly the unit activated, showing a 3-dimensional star map of the sector they had been exploring. She has also learned to interface directly with our ship's systems, Zeth-9 explained with obvious pride. Her telepathic abilities allow her to process information in ways we never anticipated. She can sense mechanical problems before our diagnostic systems detect them, and her empathic readings of alien species have prevented several potential conflicts. Sarah watched in amazement as Stella manipulated the display, highlighting specific star systems and planets with movements of her head and shifts in her fur patterns. The creature had not just recovered, she had found her calling. But that's not why we're here, Zeth-9 continued. We have a proposal for you, Dr. Chen. Before Sarah could ask what he meant, the holographic display shifted to show a massive space station under construction. Unlike the purely functional designs typical of Valkorian architecture, this structure incorporated curved surfaces, natural lighting, and what appeared to be garden areas. The Galactic Council has approved funding for a new type of research facility, Zeth-9 explained. A multi-species cooperative station dedicated to studying and protecting intelligent life throughout the galaxy. They want you to lead the Medical and Psychological Care Division. Sarah stared at the display, her mind racing. A xenopsychology center for traumatized or abandoned species? Precisely. Your work with Stella has attracted considerable attention throughout the galactic scientific community. Several species have come forward with their own stories of research subjects or captive beings who have suffered from improper care due to ignorance of their psychological needs. Stella moved to stand beside Sarah, her massive form radiating warmth and support. Through their telepathic connection, Sarah could feel the creature's encouragement and something else. Gratitude that extended far beyond their personal relationship. The Calaxian Collective has 3 highly intelligent aquatic beings who have been in captivity for over 2 years, Zeth-9 continued. The Thorian Empire recently discovered they've been accidentally psychologically torturing a species they thought was non-sentient. The Andromedan Union has the entire facility full of beings they don't know how to properly care for. The weight of it hit Sarah like a physical blow. Throughout the galaxy, countless intelligent beings were suffering in isolation and misunderstanding, just as Stella had been. The problem was far more widespread than anyone had realized. The Council has also approved something unprecedented, Zeth-9 said, his voice dropping to a more personal tone. They want Stella to serve as a liaison and counselor for rescued beings. Her unique combination of intelligence, empathy, and personal experience with recovery makes her invaluable for helping others who have suffered similar trauma. Sarah looked down at Stella, who met her gaze with those brilliant blue eyes that now sparkled with purpose and determination. Through their connection, she felt the creature's decision. Stella wanted to help others the way Sarah had helped her. There's one more thing, Zeth-9 added, pulling up another section of the holographic display. We want to establish a training program for xenopsychologists and interspecies counselors. The galaxy needs beings who understand that intelligence takes many forms and that emotional and psychological health are as important as physical well-being. Sarah felt tears building in her eyes as she realized the magnitude of what they were proposing. What had started as a single act of compassion for one dying creature had sparked a movement that could transform how advanced civilizations treated intelligent life throughout the galaxy. The program would be based on human psychological and medical principles, she asked, adapted for multiple species, but yes. Your approach of treating patients as individuals rather than specimens has proven remarkably effective across various forms of alien intelligence. The Council believes that human intuition and empathy, combined with advanced galactic technology and scientific knowledge, could revolutionize interspecies medicine. Stella suddenly pressed her great head against Sarah's side, purring so deeply that the sound resonated through the metal deck plating. The silver markings on her fur formed a pattern that Sarah had never seen before, one that somehow conveyed infinite gratitude, deep friendship, and an invitation to continue their partnership on a much larger scale. When would this facility be operational? Sarah asked, already knowing what her answer would be. Construction is already underway. The first phase should be complete within 8 months. We have volunteers from 17 different species ready to serve as staff, including several Valkorians who have learned to value emotional intelligence alongside analytical capability. Sarah laughed, remembering the cold, clinical aliens she had first met aboard the Astral Wind. Looking at Zeth-9 now, she could see how much he had changed. There was warmth in his dark eyes, and his interactions with Stella showed a depth of affection that would have been impossible for a Valkorian just months ago. Stella has been quite the teacher, she said. Indeed, she has shown us that logic and emotion are not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of true intelligence. Our research efficiency has actually improved since we began incorporating empathic considerations into our protocols. Over the next several hours, Sarah, Zeth9, and Stella worked together to review the proposed facility plans and discuss the training programs they would develop. Sarah was amazed at how naturally the three of them collaborated, with Stella serving as both translator and mediator when human intuition clashed with Valkorian logic. As evening approached on the station, Sarah found herself standing in the observation lounge with her two visitors, looking out at the stars that scattered like diamonds across the darkness. Stella sat beside her, the creature's silver markings creating gentle, flowing patterns that seemed to echo the movement of distant nebulae. "You know," Sarah said quietly, "when I first boarded your ship 3 months ago, I thought I was just trying to save one animal's life. And instead, you may have saved thousands," Zeth9 replied. "The ripple effects of your work with Stella have already begun to spread throughout the galactic community. Species that have never cooperated before are working together to establish better care protocols for intelligent beings." Stella's purr deepened, and through their telepathic connection, Sarah felt the creature's contentment. But more than that, she felt Stella's excitement for the future, for all the beings they would help, all the connections they would forge between species who had never understood each other before. "There's something beautiful about it," Sarah mused, watching a transport ship dock at one of the station's lower levels. "The idea that compassion and understanding can spread from one individual to an entire galaxy. Humans have a remarkable gift," Zeth9 said. "You see individuals where others see specimens. You see potential where others see problems. You see friends where others see subjects." Sarah smiled, scratching Stella behind the ears as the great cat leaned into her touch. "Maybe that's what the galaxy really needs. Not more advanced technology or more sophisticated analysis, but simply the willingness to care about each other." As they watched, another ship appeared in the distance, its lights twinkling against the star field. Sarah knew that soon, that facility they were planning would be filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some traumatized, some lost, some simply misunderstood. But they would also have something that had been missing from too many galactic institutions: the understanding that every intelligent being, regardless of species or origin, deserved not just medical care, but genuine compassion. Stella's markings shifted into a pattern that blazed with hope and determination. Through their connection, Sarah felt the creature's vision of the future, a galaxy where no being would suffer alone in silence, where every species would have advocates who understood their needs, where the bonds between different forms of life would grow stronger rather than more distant. It was a future worth fighting for. And as Sarah looked at her remarkable feline friend and their Valkorian ally, she knew they were ready to begin that fight together. The rescue of one dying creature had become the salvation of thousands. And this was only the beginning.